The promise he made under the rain, when Menglong's love story ended in tears. It began beneath the rain. The world around him blurred into silver streaks, and the city lights dissolved into the trembling reflection of a memory he couldn't let go of. Menglong stood alone where it all started, the quiet street where he once held her hand and whispered a promise that was meant to last forever. But forever is a cruel word. It stretches longer than love can breathe, and on that final night, under the same rain that had once witnessed their laughter, it became the echo of a broken vow. He remembered every detail, the way her eyes glowed beneath the streetlight, how her hair clung to her face when the first drop fell. That night years ago he had promised her he would never let go, no matter the storms, no matter the distance. "If you ever get lost," he told her, "follow the rain. It'll lead you back to me." Those words had once been his faith, but standing there now, drenched and shaking, he realized the rain had led him not to love, but to loneliness. His fame had taken him far from her. The bright lights, the red carpets, the scripted smiles, they built a world too loud for love to survive in. She couldn't live in his shadow anymore, and he couldn't step out of it. The industry demanded silence, control, and perfection. There was no space for vulnerability, no room for the kind of love that bled through your songs and cracked your voice during interviews. She left quietly, and he never stopped looking for her in every melody he wrote. Each song was her ghost, a promise replayed in sorrowful chords. The rain that night wasn't just weather, it was memory. It was the sky's way of repeating their story, the same rhythm that once carried her laughter, now drumming against his trembling hands. He pulled his coat tighter, his eyes lifting toward the gray heavens as if searching for forgiveness. But the truth was merciless. He had broken the only promise that ever truly mattered. In the years that followed her departure, Menglong learned how to hide heartbreak behind performance. He became a master at pretending, smiling on stage while dying in silence backstage. Friends thought he was fine. The cameras caught perfection. But love, once lost, lingers in the shadows of every spotlight. Sometimes during rehearsals, when the rain hit the studio windows, he would freeze because for a split second he could hear her voice again, faint and distant, whispering his name the way she once did when they were just two dreamers walking through a storm. That final evening, the air carried the scent of rain again, soft, heavy, and familiar. He had received her message 2 nights before, simple, almost careless. "Do you ever still think about that night?" He never replied, not because he didn't want to, but because words had become too fragile. How do you tell someone that you never stop thinking about the moment your heart learned what goodbye truly means? He walked through the streets aimlessly, drawn by instinct to the same corner where their love had once been baptized by rain. It was late, and the city had fallen asleep. Neon reflections shimmered on the wet pavement, turning every puddle into a mirror of the past. He stopped beneath the old streetlight, the same one where he had once made his promise. The light flickered, as if trying to remember him. The sound of rain filled the silence. It poured heavier, soaking through his jacket, chilling his bones. He didn't move. He let the cold consume him, as though the storm itself could cleanse him of the pain he'd carried for so long. His thoughts began to drift, flashes of her laughter, her gentle scolding when he forgot his umbrella, the way she'd tilt her head when she was trying to memorize his face. He could almost feel her hand in his again, soft and trembling, the warmth that once anchored him to this world. He closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his eyelids, she appeared just as she was that night, smiling, wet hair framing her cheeks, her voice echoing softly, "Promise me you'll find happiness, even if it's not with me." He had nodded then, believing he could, but happiness had become a language he forgot how to speak. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a message from an old friend checking in after weeks of silence. He didn't open it. He didn't want to explain the emptiness that had grown too heavy to hide. Instead, he lifted his face toward the rain, whispering words meant only for her, I kept my promise. I never stopped waiting." The words broke apart with his voice, swallowed by the sound of the storm. Some say he stayed there for hours. A few fans later claimed they saw him sitting on the curb, lost in thought, eyes red but calm, like a man finally making peace with the ghosts that haunted him. The rain never stopped that night. It fell as if heaven itself mourned him. And when the world woke up the next morning, the news spread like thunder. Menglong was gone. The headlines called it exhaustion, depression, or simply tragedy. But those who truly knew him, or thought they did, understood. He hadn't died suddenly. He had been fading for years. Every song, every performance, every forced smile had been a slow surrender. The Night Under the Rain was just the final act, the last scene in a love story that had long run out of dialogue. When the rain finally cleared, the city felt quieter. Fans gathered at the spot where he used to stand, leaving flowers, letters, and tiny paper cranes drenched in tears. Someone brought an old photo, him and her, laughing under an umbrella. No one knew where she was now, or if she ever found out. But maybe she did. Maybe, somewhere, she felt the storm that night and knew what it meant. A week later, a notebook was found in his apartment. On the last page, written in his delicate handwriting, were just a few lines. "The rain keeps its promise even when people can't. If love is meant to return, let it find me there." Those words became a part of his legacy, quoted, shared, and whispered by millions who couldn't believe someone so bright could carry so much darkness. His final song, released posthumously, began with the soft sound of rainfall, followed by a haunting piano melody that faded into silence. No lyrics, just the sound of rain, as if he wanted the world to remember that love, in its purest form, doesn't always need words. In time, the city dried and the world moved on. But the corner where he made his promise remains a quiet place of pilgrimage for those who still believe in love that never ends. Every time it rains, someone is there, standing in silence, head bowed, listening to the same rhythm that once carried his heart. Because somewhere between the downpour and the stillness, between the promise and the goodbye, Menglong left a part of himself for the world to remember. A love story that began under the rain and ended in tears, but never truly died. And maybe, just maybe, when the rain falls again, it carries his promise across the wind, a whisper to the one he never stopped loving. "I'm still waiting under the rain." The rain fell harder that night, as if heaven itself refused to let him go. Each drop seemed to carry a memory, each thunderclap a reminder of what was once beautiful but broken beyond repair. Menglong stood beneath the same dim streetlight, a figure drenched in both rain and regret. It was as though the world around him had blurred into a cinematic frame, slow, haunting, and heavy with silence. The city lights shimmered through the curtain of rain, reflecting against the puddles like fractured pieces of a forgotten promise. He could almost hear her voice echoing from those reflections, faint yet distinct, the same voice that once softened his storms. He remembered the way she used to smile when he'd complain about the weather, teasing, "You always find beauty in sadness." And he did. Perhaps that's why he loved the rain, because it hid his tears when the world was watching. That night, everything around him replayed their story like a film. He couldn't pause. The coffee shop where they first met stood just across the street, its lights dim now, but the memories still vivid. He could still see her there, sitting by the window, sketching in her notebook while waiting for the rain to stop. He'd approached her then, nervous but enchanted, offering her his umbrella with a shy smile. She refused, saying, "Let me finish the rain with you." That one sentence had been the beginning of everything. Years later, it was still raining. Only now there was no laughter, no sketches, no umbrella to share. Just him, a man who had traded love for a spotlight that never truly warmed him. Fame had given him everything but peace. The more people admired him, the lonelier he became. He wrote songs for her that no one ever heard, verses that spoke of their secret nights, of promises whispered beneath thunder. But the world only saw his success, not the pain behind the lyrics. He walked slowly, each step heavy with the weight of what could have been. The rain slicked his hair against his forehead, and the streetlight flickered like it was breathing with him, a pulse of fading hope. Somewhere deep inside, he wanted to believe that she still remembered that promise. That maybe on nights like this, she too stood by her window, watching the rain, thinking of him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old silver ring, the one he had planned to give her the night everything fell apart. He had designed it himself, simple and delicate, engraved with a single word, forever. But forever was the first thing they lost when fame came between them. Rumors, distance, secrecy. They became cracks that even love couldn't fill. He had promised her honesty, but the world he lived in thrived on lies. So she left quietly without goodbye. Even after she was gone, he held onto the ring. He carried it through every concert, every sleepless night, every silent breakdown. It was more than jewelry, it was his confession, his guilt, and his hope all at once. As he stared at it now, the raindrops glimmered against the metal like tiny shards of light, and he whispered, "I was supposed to protect you, not lose you." A passing car splashed water onto the curb, but he didn't flinch. He just stood there, clutching the ring, his breath visible in the cold air. The city moved around him, people rushing with umbrellas, unaware that a man's heart was breaking quietly among them. The world kept spinning, but for Yu Menglong, time had stopped years ago, on the day she walked away. He turned his gaze toward the sky, watching the raindrops blur the streetlights into halos. For a fleeting second, he could almost imagine her beside him, the scent of her hair mingling with the rain, her hand slipping into his. The illusion was so vivid he could feel warmth again, a cruel kindness from memory. But when he blinked, she was gone, and all that remained was the cold. Somewhere in the background, a soft tune played from a nearby cafe, one of his songs. The lyrics spoke of love that waded through storms, of promises made beneath the rain. He had written it for her, but the world thought it was just another romantic ballad. They never knew it was his goodbye disguised as melody. He listened now, each line cutting deeper. His thoughts began to spiral, moments overlapping like broken film reels. The laughter, the tears, the endless rehearsals that replaced their late-night talks. The public love that was never allowed to exist. He remembered the night she cried, saying, "I can't keep pretending we're strangers." That was when she walked away, and he let her because the industry had taught him to stay silent even when his heart screamed. Now, standing there soaked and trembling, he realized that silence had become his punishment. He wanted to call her, to tell her he still loved her, that the rain still reminded him of her smile. But he knew it was too late. Love, once neglected, turns into a ghost that follows you, never seen, never touched, but always there. The thunder rolled across the sky, deep and distant, like the final applause of a story nearing its end. Yu Menglong took one last look at the silver ring in his palm, then slowly knelt down and placed it on the wet pavement beneath the streetlight. "If you ever come back," he murmured, "you'll find me here." His voice cracked, barely louder than the rain. He stayed like that for a long time, motionless, lost in the rhythm of the storm. His phone buzzed again, a call he wouldn't answer, a world he no longer belonged to. Somewhere, a fan might have recognized him, but they didn't approach. There was something sacred about the way he stood there, like a man caught between life and memory. When he finally turned away, the rain still poured, washing over the ring, over his footprints, over the last trace of his promise. He walked down the empty street, his silhouette fading into the mist, swallowed by the storm that had once been his muse. And when morning came, the rain had stopped, but the city felt emptier. The streetlight flickered once more, illuminating the tiny silver ring lying untouched on the ground. It shone faintly, like a tear that refused to dry. Those who found it later said it looked almost peaceful, a small symbol of love that refused to die even when the man who made it was gone. For some, it was just a story. For others, it was a lesson about how promises, like rain, are beautiful but fleeting. But for those who loved you, Menglong, it became something deeper, a reminder that even in heartbreak there is poetry. That sometimes the most unforgettable love stories don't end in forever, they end in rain. And somewhere beyond the clouds, maybe he finally found her again. Not beneath the storm this time, but in the quiet after it.